Some people get the knack of this very easily, and then it's a little bit harder for other people. So that's why I wanted to try it along with you. We see these dots over here on the final grid drawing. That's to show you kind of what you would look for the jawline here. And I'm actually going to start up here. So let's start in this upper corner, A and B, and then between 1 and 2. So I'm in this top square. And when we're doing the grid method, we're just looking for where a line intersects the edge of a square. So this line is about halfway across the bottom of that square, would you say? So I start with a dot, a reference point. The line going up the side of the square is about halfway. So I've got kind of my start and end point for this kind of curved diagonal, so I can sketch that in now. Then on top of that curved diagonal, if I'm only paying attention to that one little square, I have a little loop. And the loop comes maybe about halfway down. And that's all I have in that square. Something that helps a lot for people, like some people, I don't know, it's just like your brain gets this really quickly and it's not a problem at all, or it can be very difficult for some people to get the hang of this. So something that I do sometimes for students who have a little bit more trouble figuring out the grid method that seems to work pretty well is to take some sticky notes and block off everything except for the square you're looking at. So if you find yourself having trouble with this method, this is something you can try. You just gotta make sure you get those sticky notes right at the edges of your square. And that kind of helps you to zoom in and focus on just that one space. So this is the square that was next to this one, so I'm going to draw it right here, next door. And I'm looking for those reference points again. So I notice that this curve ends almost to the top of that edge, so I'm gonna put a dot. I have a little line coming in about halfway, a little less than halfway, so I'm gonna draw that little line in, it's not much. Then I've got this kind of swoop that comes in from the edge, a little over halfway. Looks like it continues from the one next door, so I'm just gonna have it do that. A little over halfway up. And that same line that ends here starts in that same spot, so I'm just gonna connect it up and across. And see how that kind of helps me just to zoom in on that one square, because sometimes we get a little bit overwhelmed when we're looking at the whole picture. So using this method and kind of scooting your sticky notes with you as you go and blocking everything else off just kind of helps. So we've got a line that starts right where this one ends, so I've got a dot there already. I'm looking to see where these two lines end, so I'd say that one ends a little lower than the one over here, so I'm gonna put a dot just a little lower. I'm gonna put another dot under that. I've got two lines that come in. This one's maybe a little lower than half. And that one's just underneath. And then I have one come in almost from the corner here. And it ends about there. So now I've got some things to connect. I've got some reference points to help kind of guide me. I'm also looking for thickness of line. So just for a little bit more of a challenge, because these have just been lines so far, let's scoot down to a square that has more detail. So who has a square they want to do down in like the face area?
E4 and 5, like, there's like an eye.
B, okay, so you're talking about this one right here?
E.
This guy? The left eye?
No, the right eye.
The right eye? Sorry, I didn't hear you. I gotta turn my hearing aid up. Okay, so we're doing, what is this? E, you said, not B. E4. So this corner right here, we're gonna do next. I'm just gonna put 2 sticky notes, but you're welcome to use this method and use 4 and just scoot them around with you. So we're down, we've gotta find that same box. This is the one we're working in right here. So let's try to map out with some dots and some kind of starting and ending points. So we've got a corner diagonal here. When I'm trying to draw something with a lot of detail like a face, I try to forget it's a face when I'm drawing it, and I just look for dark and light, and I look for shapes and how they connect. And I look for negative space as well as what I'm drawing. So when I talk about that, see how the space above his eyebrow here is just a white area with nothing? I look for that shape as well as the eyebrow shape, because that helps me to make sure that I've got it accurate. And that's something you can look for. If something's not looking quite right, look for the negative space around it and see how that compares. And sometimes you can figure out what's funky, what's not quite right when you look for that negative space. So I'm just sketching in that eyebrow. I've got that in the right spot. I've got the line that goes across the eye that starts right under the eyebrow. So I'm gonna put a dot there, and it ends lower and almost to the edge over here. And it's a little bit of a kind of a swoop or a curve. So I'm just gonna have it swoop down and across. I've got the start of the eye, maybe about a little less than halfway between this line and that bottom edge of the square. So I'm gonna put a little dot there. I'm gonna put a little dot here where the eye comes up on an angle and then it starts to curve down. It ends just outside of this line. And let's see if we can connect those together now. So we've got a diagonal that comes up, a curve that comes across pretty close to the line above it actually. So we wanna pay attention. That's that negative space I was talking about again. And then curving down. Oopsie, I'm getting a little too close to the bottom edge of that square. So paying attention to that negative space helped me. I'm seeing that that eye, I've drawn it a little bit too big because I'm too close to the bottom edge of my square in my own drawing. So I'm going to scoot that line up a little. That looks a little bit better. And then we can mark out where the iris starts and ends. You notice on this guy's iris, like we were drawing our human face this week, we don't see the top edge of that iris. The eyelid covers it quite a bit actually. I think I've made my eye a bit too long on the bottom here. So taking it one square at a time is just another way of drawing accurately. And this method is really useful for anything. It doesn't have to be used for a face. Go ahead. It can be used to draw anything accurately. You can use this grid method. So sometimes when I'm just sketching something and I just want it to look correct, I draw a quick grid with just maybe 2 lines down and 2 lines across. Just like 9 squares on top of a photo. If I'm trying to draw something accurately, it just kind of helps me to take it one little section at a time and make sure everything's connecting and coming together. So what we're going to be doing, if you want to keep going on this and practicing, you can. What we're going to be doing is a grid drawing of a human face. It can be anyone you want it to be. So mine is, I just chose an artist. I'm so blinded right now. I'll show you it with the picture. I think I have a picture. Actually, I know it's in camera roll in here.